Different topics with a variety of amazing guests. We visit the past. We ponder our future as we exist in the here and now. At This Moment with Angela Black, Thursday evenings, Studio B on Revolution Radio.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
download it to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome, one and all, to I Am Nature. Your host, Brian Porter, is here, as well as my guest, and Angela Black. How you doing, Angela?
I'm doing well, Brian. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I am just super. I'm super pumped about my guest today. Her name is Robin Milan. She is the head of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature, or at least the only staffer at the organization. She has an interesting background. Robin, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here with both of you.
Yeah, I look forward to a wonderful, wonderful discussion.
Yes, well, there's not. Rights of Nature has been one of my main focal points of my show. I've had about, I think, 11 or 12 shows so far, and Munta Ito started the ball rolling, and then we had Alberto Ruz, but we didn't really have any chance to talk about Rights of Nature with him because he's so busy and has done so many great things. But we're going to get him on next week. So, Robin, can you just give us a bit of a background in terms of what you've been doing, before Rights of Nature? What sort of got you into the movement?
Well, I am Robin Milam, and
Sure.
That's okay. I started my career as a business professional with IBM and American Express and AirTouch Communications. But a number of years ago in the mid-1990s, I made a trip with the Pachamama Alliance to the rainforest, very remote portion of the rainforest of Ecuador, and met with the Achuar people who are a dream culture, and made experienced firsthand what it is to live completely connected with nature and to have the natural world be such a part of their essence and their culture. And it was a very life-altering experience for me, and I've since been back many times. And in 2008, Ecuador became the first country to recognize rights of nature in their constitution, and they did that because, they have the rainforest as only one of four major ecosystems that they are custodians of. They've got the rainforest, they've got the Andes, they've got the coastal area with mangroves, and then the Galapagos Islands. And so they know what it is to be responsible custodians of fragile ecosystems. And when they rewrote their constitution, they included rights of nature. And then in the winter of 2009, in Copenhagen at the UN Climate Change Conference, where the whole negotiations for Kyoto Protocol fell apart because the large member states couldn't come together, the grassroots people that were there really became agitated and said, we are going to take action. And Evo Morales, who was president of Bolivia, said that he was going to host a 2010 People's Conference on Climate Change and Rights of Mother Earth. And I happened to hear about it, and something clicked and said, I'm going. And so in Cochabamba, Bolivia in 2010, 35,000 people came together. And one of the things that came out of that conference was the Universal Declaration for the Rights of Mother Earth. And individuals who are now colleagues of mine from the United States who've been leading the community rights and rights of nature movement here in the United States, as well as Cormac Cullinan, who is a South African attorney and who's written Wild Law, and others from Australia, and certainly colleagues from Ecuador. 6 different continents came together in September of 2010 to say, there's a movement that's starting. We're seeing it in the communities in the United States. We've seen it with the Ecuador Constitution, and now with the Universal Declaration for Rights of Mother Earth. How do we come together and ensure that we maintain this momentum? And out of that gathering came the idea to form the Global Alliance for Rights of Nature. And the alliance is, you mentioned that I'm the only staff. I'm actually it's a contractual arrangement, and we are an alliance of individuals and organizations around the world who are committed to the implementation of rights of nature, rights of Mother Earth at every level, and seeing that forward. And shortly after that, I'm now doing web development as one of my interests, and I volunteered to develop a website for the Global Alliance, and that's how I got involved and have been involved now for the last 4.5 years. And it's really exciting to watch this movement and to be a part of it, because it so deeply connects with my own passion around realigning human consciousness and transforming our relationship with our planet and with each other and with ourselves. And so that's a broad swipe of who I am and how I got into this work. And it's been an incredible journey, and I feel so privileged and honored to be a part of it, to be connecting and working with some of the people around the world that I am, and who are really reshaping our human consciousness and looking at how we do realign our relationship with planet Earth.
Well, you've certainly got some pretty prominent people involved with your organization. I'll get to that in a minute, but you segued perfectly into my next point. Is I wanted to get the website out there. Can you tell the listener what the website is for the Rights of Nature?
Our website is therightsofnature.org. It's just the 4 words, therightsofnature.org. therightsofnature.org. Yeah, it's all lowercase, folks. I'm not sure if upper works, but it works great in lower. Oh, it does. It works either way. Yeah, I figured. Yes. You design it's easier to read if you use it that way. So. But it's beautiful that you could get the whole organization name. It's kind of late in the internet development, so I'm glad to see it was out there for you. Mm-hmm. And that's that's great. So you've got some amazing people involved. Like you've got Munta. I've interviewed her, and then you've got Alberto Ruz. Mm-hmm. You've got I'm sure a lot of our listeners know Vandana Shiva. Mm-hmm. She's leading the GMO movement, or the anti-GMO movement. Our executive committee, what we have is an executive committee that includes one representative from each continent. And for North America, Maud Barlow, who is your neighbor and who is...
I know Maud.
She's an incredible woman.
No,
Head of council. She is such an amazing activist and, brilliant stand for water and the rights of water. She's part of Food and Water Watch, and she's just a really wonderful human being. It's quite an honor to...
We go way back. I knew her 40 years ago. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. When she was just starting her career in activism. She's done like 100 times more than I've done, but I'm pretty sure she'd know me if I talked to her again. It's been a long time though, so I haven't chatted with her in over 15 years. But I was very impressed to see that she was is she the president?
We don't have a president. We try not to. We try to use a network, and so she is. She's part of what we call our executive team, and then we've got a broader steering committee, and we really do try to go with the flow, and everyone has a prominent voice depending on what the subject is. And another person I mentioned, I think earlier, is Cormac Cullinan. Cormac is the author of Wild Law, and Wild Law, a Manifesto for Earth Justice, and he had studied under Thomas Berry, and when Evo Morales called for the Conference on Rights of Mother Earth and Climate Change, he and Pablo Salón, who was at that point
I lost her.
Yeah, I think she might have just hit mute or something. Well, hopefully she comes back.
We lost you, Robin.
Hello, Robin. Talking about Evo Morales and Pablo someone. I missed the last name. Wow, what an amazing person. She's typing. Let's see what's happening.
Let's see what happened. It's not unusual, folks, that we'll lose our connection on occasion.
Okay, wow. Robin, you might just want to hang up and then call right back in, or I'll drag you in.
Am I there? Am I
here? Oh, there
now?
you are. Yes.
Okay.
Beautiful.
My apologies to all of you. I actually did touch another button. I have a mute button on my headset, and apparently I reached for something and I must have hit it. So
the double mute syndrome.
Right. So anyway, Evo Morales and Pablo turned to Cormac to help lead the authorship of the Universal Declaration for Rights of Mother Earth. Natty Green is a Rights of Nature activist. She's 31, 32 years old, was on the committee, the Constitutional Committee in Ecuador, and is a dynamo. She would be a fabulous guest for you also. And her name is Natalia Green, and she is from Ecuador.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I saw her on the site. Yeah.
Bill Twist is actually with the Pachamama Alliance. It's because of Bill that I got into this work. Pachamama serves as our physical sponsor. You mentioned Vandana Shiva, who brings so much of the consciousness around seeds as being the source of life, and her work, her global work there. And then from Australia, we have Michelle Maloney, who is with the Australian Earth Laws Alliance. And then from Europe, Karine Nadal, who is with Gaia Foundation, which is an international foundation that also is partnering with the African Bio Organization. But in addition to our executive committee, we have people such as, I mentioned Pablo Salón. We also have Osprey Oriole Lake, who is the co-founder and executive director of the Women's Earth and Climate Caucus, or Climate Network. and they've hosted a International Women's Congress a year or so ago. They're doing very, very powerful work. I also mentioned Linda Sheehan. And CELDEF, which is the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund out of Pennsylvania, Thomas Lindsay and Mari Margill, who actually are the ones who really spearheaded the movement in the United States, starting in 2006, which is when which predates Ecuador's constitution by about 2 years.
Let's pick up on that connection, because we chatted earlier, and you said there was a connection between their actual their win in is it Pennsylvania?
Yes. Yeah,
their win there, and the struggle for Ecuador to have its rights of nature enshrined in their constitution. That's a really cool connection.
Well, what happened was there's a little community called Tamacwabura, which is in the coal mining and agricultural central belt of Pennsylvania. And they had, for a number of years, been facing some very critical issues, one of which was that their coal mining was in the process of closing down, and so they had a mine site on the edge of town that the mine owners were looking at converting into a toxic waste dump. It was at a time when the Hudson River was being dredged. This was in the late 1990s, early 2000 to 2006 timeframe, and they needed a place to dump all of this heavy metal sludge from the river. And they also, and the community didn't want that to happen, and they were also concerned about stirring up all the coal ash if you transform a mining site into a toxic waste dump. And all the questions of, can you line the dump? There wasn't even an adequate plan to line, so there was to line the dump, which meant that there was going to be a lot of leaching coming out of the site. And the second concern was that there had been some very large corporate pig farms who had moved into the area, and with lots of pigs and animals, you have an enormous amount of liquid waste, which the corporate farmers were converting into, what they call it, biosolids, and using it as fertilizer in the area, and it was actually quite toxic. And there were two young boys, one was 11 and one was a teenager, a couple years older, who actually died because of that. And the community of Tamacwabura turned to Thomas Lindsay and the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund to try to find a way to stop these actions. And, our environmental legal system is all about regulations and permits, and our permit process actually legalizes damage. It just says how much damage you can do. And because of the permit process that was in place, they were not able to stop what was happening. And so the community leaders and the township leaders and Thomas Lindsay and the staff at CELDEF said, we've obviously need to get out of the box and come up with a solution and it was in that process that they realized the approach they needed to take was to reclaim community rights, the community's right to make the decisions as to what happens in their community. If a community doesn't want a toxic waste dump that's going to be contaminating the aquifers and the land around the community, or the use of biosolids, toxic biosolids, and declaring and reclaiming their right to make those decisions, The second piece was to also take a position that within their community, they do not recognize corporate personhood rights, which unfortunately has come to trump rights of individuals and rights of communities, and has made it difficult to stop some of the actions that corporations have been doing, large corporations have been doing in the name of profit and progress. And then the third piece was to recognize that the natural systems, the natural communities, the aquifers, the land, the watershed had the right in and of itself to be clean and toxic free. And those three elements of they actually put in place a couple of ordinances, and those were the first ordinances in the world that we're aware of to recognize rights of nature, and they were here in the United States. So when Ecuador, 2 years later, raised the question of...
Robin, can I just ask about Pennsylvania? Just one question. Sure. They put the ordinance in. Did they have to have a referendum, or was it how did it? What was the technical maneuver that they used to do it? Was it?
Well, let me answer that question because it depends on the community. If the city council or the county supervisors are willing to pass an ordinance, in most communities they have the ability to do that. In other places, they can call for a referendum and call for a vote. And what's been happening, you took note of Mendocino County here in California, just this last November. San Benito County and Mendocino County both passed ordinances using a popular vote to pass it. So it can be one of either way.
Great. Okay.
Yeah. So when Ecuador was rewriting its constitution, and Alberto Acosta, who was the president of the Ecuadorian Constitutional Assembly, he had actually studied in Germany under a gentleman in Germany who was a rights of nature advocate. And so he was aware of the concept, and they began having discussions about it. And actually, some of my colleagues with the Pachamama Alliance helped kind of float the idea, and then they turned to Thomas Lindsay and the CELDEF organization from the perspective of having a demonstration that implementing rights of nature into law was a workable solution, and that they had a model that they could turn to say it does work. For so many skeptics saying, what do you mean rights of nature? How would that work? And so the United States, these communities provided a model for Ecuador to move forward with.
Yeah, because they were asking, that you said that, what was the connection with the Supreme Court ruling too? We talked about that. Somebody took it all the way to the Supreme Court, one of these ordinances?
Yeah, well, let me I think this is a good time for me to just take a moment and make the distinction. Our current legal system is set up so that nature is treated as property. It's an object of the law rather than a subject of the law. And what I mean by that is when you're a subject of the law, you have standing. And you can represent yourself, or you can be represented because you have a demonstrable interest. And as individuals, and now even that's what corporate personhood, one of the elements of corporate personhood is, it gives standing in a court of law. And it also, our current law also says that if someone wins a case and they are granted monetary damages, that they can do whatever they want with those damages. If I have a piece of property and it's been damaged and someone pays me damages, I have the choice of either making the repairs to my house or my property or whatever, or I can just turn around and buy a new piece of property. I'm not required. I can use that money however I want. When rights of nature is in the law, the natural systems, the ecosystems, or natural communities, whatever term you want to use, are actually recognized as a subject of the law. They have standing in the law, and it recognizes that natural communities have the right to exist, persist, flourish, and rejuvenate or regenerate their integral systems. It also means that if damages are granted on behalf of the ecosystem, that those damages then need to be used, that money needs to be used to actually repair the ecosystem. And so those are important distinctions. And it came about in 1972. Christopher Stone, who is a professor at the University of Southern California, had actually thrown out a question in his environmental law class about should trees have standing, and he and it created a stir and a big question for the students, and so they began to do some research. And during their research, he actually wrote an article called "Should Trees Have Standing?" toward legal rights for natural objects. And he also discovered that there was a case that was going through the legal system at that point in time. And it was the Sierra Club was suing the major interests in a development project. The Walt Disney Corporation was proposing to develop a major ski resort, larger than any we have apparently in the Tahoe area, in Mineral King Valley, which is in the central part of the Sierras in California. And the Sierra Club sued trying to stop this development. And they were suing on behalf of the valley itself to protect the valley. But the lower court threw the case out because the Sierra Club itself did not have an ownership interest in the property that was, or the area that was involved, and they couldn't demonstrate that any of their members had a vested interest in it. And therefore the court said, Sierra Club, you have no standing in this case, so we're throwing it out. And they kept appealing, and they appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court.
So, Robin, we're coming up to our first break, so we'll pick this up in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Return to I Am Nature soon, folks. Welcome back to I Am Nature. I am your host, Brian Porter, and it's usually this time in the show when I talk about the importance of supporting Revolution Radio, the largest listener-sponsored internet radio station on the planet. 2 platforms, chock full of incredible shows, I Am Nature being just one of them. So let's look at the Support Us page on the Revolution Radio website, which is found at freedomslips.com. I'd like all my listeners to go there, try to prod some money out of you folks, because, you know, we all work here for nothing, but it's because we love the planet and we want to see things change for the better. So, monthly support club, you can get in on that and make a monthly commitment to the radio station, which would just be awesome. Here's something that's going to create something that's really healthy for you, your own garden. And we have 3 different levels of seed packs, folks. And if you're feeling lush, maybe you won the lottery or something, hey, we got a one-time donate option as well. You can get a $5 chat room icon, and you can also run an ad for $25 a month at the top of our site. So there you go, folks. Those are your options. And now I'd like to get back to our guest, Robin. How you doing?
I'm doing great. This is wonderful to be on.
Oh, thanks. Well, I mean,
Great,
such
great work you guys are doing. It's a real privilege to be a part of it.
Oh, thanks so much. We, I mean, we really do. At least on I'm Nature, we really try to look for solutions to problems. Alternative radio, if it has a flaw, it's the fact that it talks nonstop about all the issues that we face and how corrupt the mainstream media is. But I don't think it focuses enough on what are the solutions. And that's why my program is basically focused mainly on working with people, organizations like the Rights of Nature, and working towards viable solutions. Because, Robin, there's a ton of good things happening on this planet. Would you not agree?
Oh, absolutely. And people are concerned and in action on many, many different levels. And that's part of what's wonderful of being a part of this movement, is coming to meet and to understand so many different viewpoints in terms of what's happening. So,
right, exactly. Okay, now let's get back to what we were talking about before the break. This lawsuit by the Sierra Club.
Right, the lawsuit by the Sierra Club, it kept getting thrown out because the Sierra Club had no standing, and when it went to the Supreme Court, Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas had actually read Christopher Soane's article on should trees have standing and this notion of rights of nature. And so the Supreme Court actually ruled in support of the lower courts, because the way our law is written and the fact that the Sierra Club did not have standing. And so, they also said that the case will stand as is. But Douglas wrote a minority report that said, if our legal systems included the recognition of rights of nature, this case would have been ruled differently. So it went on record saying that, if the ecosystems had standing in a court of law, that they would have, first of all, they would have heard the case, and who knows how the ruling would have come out, but at least they would have been able to hear the case. And an example of how it now works is in Ecuador. A year or so ago, there was development that was going on along the Vilcabamba River, and the Vilcabamba River was being damaged because the construction crews were just throwing the debris into the river itself. And some residents below where the river was all of this debris was being thrown into the river, went to court claiming that the river, on behalf of the river itself, saying that the debris was blocking the river and changing the flow, and that it was inhibiting the river's right to flow freely and to be unobstructed. And it took some. It was not an easy case because of the newness of the legal system that in Ecuador, but they won, and it's the first case that was taken forward on behalf of the river that was won. And in that case, the damages that were awarded by the court have now been applied to make some corrections to what was happening, and was, those monies went specifically to correcting the course of the river itself.
Beautiful. That's awesome. And I know from Moomta that there's a river in, I think it was New Zealand, that's considered a living being.
Yes, that is the Fungal Nui River, and though I say it with an F, it is spelled with a W. And what the situation is, the North Island of the Fungal Nui River flows north and south on the North Island of New Zealand. And for decades, the Crown government, the New Zealand Crown government, and the Maori and the specific tribal group, or the iwi, have been in negotiations on how do they manage or oversee the river itself, because the river is a sacred river to the iwi Maoris, and it's also a large major commercial river from the standpoint of the government and the citizens of New Zealand. And they just in 2012 came to an agreement that they would recognize the personhood rights of the river itself, and they would appoint a guardian from the iwi people and a guardian from the government. And just as we appoint guardians for children in our legal systems here in the United States and Canada and other places, those representatives would serve as guardians of the rights of the Fungal Nui River.
Wow, so that's just an example, folks, of how this rights of nature, how the laws can affect positive change on the planet.
Right, and it's a concept that, the Ganga or Ganges River in India is probably the most well-known sacred river in the world, and it is also one of the most highly polluted rivers. And there is a rights of the Ganga River movement going on in India. They haven't got the legislation in place, but there's a strong movement advocating that one way to protect and to look at how to clean up, ensure that the river is brought back to its natural state, is through recognizing the rights of the Ganga River.
The Ganges River.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. It is. I'm fairly into Vedic knowledge systems, and there's a lot of sacred sites in the Ganges, and it must be a real struggle over there, though, with so many people using the river, right, for sustenance. And
right. It's just like here you've got all the fertilizers and toxic runoff that occurs, plus it's used for all sorts of human and animal purposes, and so it's a major issue.
So speaking of water, the situation in California right now is quite dramatic in terms of them talking about cutting back on water use dramatically and things of that sort. Can you see ways that the rights of nature movement could help with this issue?
Well, certainly because of the growing scarcity, the drought. I've been advocating that my East Coast and Canadian friends send us some of their snow, because some of the last measurements that were taken, we should have 5 feet of snow up near Angela, and there's no snow there at all. So, we don't have the snowpack, and this is going to be a very long, dry summer. And so certainly there are many political interests that are coming to play, and one of the concerns is that the rights to water, and I make that distinction as opposed to rights of water, the human right to water, there have actually been just the claims to water rights go beyond the actual capacity of the aquifers and the rivers, and so there's a lot of political negotiating and positioning that's going on, and what rights of nature, recognizing the rights of the Sacramento River or the other aquifers to run freely, and to would help in terms of being sure that the capacity of the river itself is taken into account as we look at the various uses of it.
I'm thinking of rights of nature fighting against, we talked a bit about mining of water.
Oh, yes. In Mount Shasta, it's a community that many of your listeners know of because Mount Shasta is there, and also they have a major underground aquifer, very pure water, and Nestle's has been mining water and selling it for bottled water. And several years ago, the citizens of Mount Shasta actually had two issues that they were up in arms about. One is the depletion of the aquifer because Nestle's is mining the water for bottled water purposes, and also PG&E, our local utility company, was public knowledge that they were cloud seeding and to control rainfall on the western slopes, and the community was upset about that. And they went forward working with the Community and Environmental Legal Defense Fund, the CELDEF, the organization we had talked about earlier, and wrote up an ordinance that had the three elements to it, which is the community rights and the not recognizing corporate personhood rights, as well as rights of nature. And we're prepared to put it on the ballot, and we don't really know exactly what happened, but it never made it out of the elections office onto the ballot. But that is an example of how rights of nature was also, a community was looking to put rights of nature in place. And in Mendocino County, as well as there are some 150 or so communities across the United States, many of whom, not all, but many of whom have rights of nature in their community rights ordinances. And fracking is one of the issues that is really creating the incentive to step up and put a rights of nature in place. And Mendocino County put that in place in this last November election. And Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is actually the largest community. I believe this is 2011 or so, when they have, most people know about the three rivers that flow through Pittsburgh, but there's also a fourth river that flows under the city. And the energy companies wanted to be able to do fracking within the city limits. And the city council said, no, we don't want that. And they put in place an ordinance that recognizes rights of nature with the intention of preventing fracking.
I particularly like what they did in Mendocino County. If I got this right, they actually said to all levels of government beyond local government that we're going to run the show without you. Is that not what they said? Basically, complete political independence?
Well, they essentially said we have the right to decide what happens in our community, and we're not going to be subject to whether it's state or federal or whomever.
Yeah,
and, yeah.
To me, this is the ideal solution to a lot of our issues, because once people take local control, whether it's rights in nature or whether it's decisions on their economy or whatever, I mean, once you have local control, all the tax revenue is staying within. Are there people, maybe you don't know the answer to this question, but have they refused to pay any taxes, federal taxes or state taxes?
I haven't seen that happening. I'm not aware of that happening as a part of the community action, but but that's also not in most cases the intent. Mm-hmm. And it's also, it is a position that in Ohio there have been many communities, Athens, Ohio, and Spring Valley, a number of communities who actually have fracking within their communities, and Moms Against Fracking have come forward and said we don't want this in our community, and they've put these ordinances in place, but the state government is coming back saying, you as a community, they're challenging this as the community's right to do it. It's a big question and debate as to how far the community's rights to self-government go. So
there's a human component to all this, right? The more strongly the community opposes something that affects the rights and interests, say fracking, I think it contributes to the ability of the community to enforce this action, right?
Right. In our legal system, and I am not a lawyer, so I don't want to have anyone think that I am, but our legal systems are set up so that, in essence, this whole the federal versus state versus community, the legal systems, the rights of the people are reserved to the people unless it's specifically defined. And so that's the angle. And there's and I don't want to get into too much of the legal consideration, but there's a Dillon's rule that recognizes rights as the area that there are limits as to how much of the trumping that the state and the federal government can do from a community and individual perspective.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, well, I think Angela has a question for you, Milan. Or Robin.
Hi, Robin. Just an amazing, wealth of knowledge that you're providing today. And Brian, of course, kudos on just another amazing guest. So I was looking at your website, and we've just got a couple minutes before the break. So I wanted to ask a little bit to switch gears, ask about your outreach involving youth. And as I saw that is a part of the rightsofnature.org, and I was wondering if you had any commentary on what's going on with the youth and how's that going as far as educating the younger generation.
Well, certainly it's an area where we are looking to educate our youth, and because our youth are the leaders of tomorrow, and what we are doing is we're leaving them a very painful legacy, and it's an area where we'd like to have a much more specific involvement. They've been involved we have a global signature campaign with the intention of gathering 1 million signatures to deliver them to the UN. And Mumta may have talked about, I don't know if she talked about it on your call, but one of the intentions is to deliver 1 million signatures to Ban Ki-moon in Paris, and our youth are involved in that campaign in collecting signatures.
Gotcha. So, and then from there, we are leaving, a horrible set of circumstances, for the youth, and it is great that that you have become involved with this this whole thing, leaving your corporate world behind and doing this. Are you without getting too personal, so are you able to support your habit by doing this? I mean, is there, because I can't imagine this being very profitable for you, which I'm just wondering, how do you exist on this level with such a great journey? Are you able to fund your own habit?
Part of it I fund myself, and part of it, we have the global, just this last year, 2014, we hosted a summit, an International Rights of Nature Summit in Ecuador in January. And one of the outcomes of that summit, we hosted our first International Rights of Nature Tribunal. And then in December, we hosted our second International Rights of Nature Tribunal in Lima, Peru, and we did that in conjunction or parallel to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, or the COP20 session, and it's our intention to host a third tribunal in Paris in December of 2015, later this year. And to do that, we we have individual donor. We look for individual donors as well as grants from organizations that are advocating a new way, a new relationship, and new forms of government, new forms of social structures. And funding is a major consideration, it's a major issue, and we are actively looking for additional funding support. So,
good to know. We're at the break, so we'll be right back for another hour.
Welcome back to I Am Nature. I'm your host. My name is Brian Porter, and we have Robin Milan here from the Rights of Nature Global Movement. And I just wanted to ask Robin, what would be the easiest way for people to develop a relationship with your organization? What would you suggest?
Well, there are a number of ways. First of all, connect with us through the website at therightsofnature.org, and educate them. Start in looking at how to educate themselves, and then also look at issues in your community where rights of nature apply and can be in dialogue around the concepts of rights of nature. But be in connection with us. We have in the Bay Area recently. We hosted a Rights of Nature Tribunal. I've got colleagues in the Bay Area that hosted a tribunal. It was a tremendous platform for educating the community on the concepts, and so there. And another way is we talked about funding a little bit, but another way is we need financial support. We have this is a long road to creating the level of transformation that we need in our communities and in our nation. And so we need all the partnership and help that we can get.
And how would somebody find that on your site, a place to send you some funds?
Oh, right up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a picture of the Earth. If you click on it, it takes you to a donation.
Okay, great.
Right.
Yeah, just so people know where to find it.
Yeah, and if anyone that sends a contact, if you go to our contact page, all of those email contacts come directly to me. And if I get a specific communication coming in, I respond to it and I connect either by email, and if it looks appropriate, we pick up the phone and we have telephone conversations. So.
Not that, a phone conversation?
Oh, yeah. Even a Skype conversation. I live on Skype.
I do.
We have and
same party there.
Yeah, we are involved in this. Planning for international events means that we have people from around the world on Skype calls, and as we're looking to plan Paris, we've got people on every continent working with us.
So on my shows thus far, I'd focused a lot of my attention on people off continent or in other countries. I want to focus all this show on what's happening in Canada and the U.S., or actually more particularly in the U.S., because the base of our listenership is U.S. Audience. So let's explore more this CELDEF, the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund, because they're a big part of the Rights of Nature movement, right, in the U.S.
Yes. And we also have a new organization in San Francisco that's called Movement Rights, and they work very Shannon Biggs and Penny Yopel Plant work very closely also with CELDEF, but more their focus is more, or has been, California and the West. But
you think they do a show?
Oh, of course.
Okay, great. Well,
in fact,
send me their contact information. We'll do a follow up with them because I really want to get people moving in your country. Because
okay, so let me talk a little bit about in the Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay Area. A group of my colleagues have come together to form what we call the Bay Area Rights of Nature Alliance, and they are in partnership. Well, Penny Opal Plant, who is also, I just mentioned, with Movement Rights, is the head or the organizer of Idle No More in the Bay Area. And as you know, Idle No More, I'm assuming your listeners are aware, it's a group of indigenous peoples who in the last few years have really stood up and said, we are no longer going to be idle. We're not going to allow the Keystone Pipeline. We're saying no to tar sands. We're saying no to fracking in the especially the areas. So much of the fracking that's going on in North Dakota and throughout the central part of the United States is on indigenous reservations, indigenous territories. And this is a group of, these are nations, people who are being tremendously impacted by the negative effects of fracking, and they are saying, no more. And the Idle No More group in the Bay Area are having, in the Richmond area, which is where Chevron, there are several refineries, the huge Chevron refinery in Richmond, California, which is part of the East Bay area. And what they are doing is they're having prayer walks and trying to, in inviting Chevron employees and executives to participate in these prayer walks, saying, at a core level, we have a common interest here. And they're just doing some really powerful, amazing work. And Penny and our colleague Shannon Biggs, who are with Movement Rights, are very, very committed. Shannon is actually one of the founding members of the Global Alliance for Rights of Nature. She was in Ecuador when the Global Alliance was founded. When we have done our 2 tribunals in Ecuador and in Peru, Shannon was the lead presenter in terms of the fracking, the case around fracking. And so there's some very strong opponents to fracking who are saying we've got to take a different solution, and recognizing rights of nature as an anchor for saying no to fracking and some of the other tactics that are being used.
In terms of the present political situation in the U.S., are there any, I'm sure there's no Democratic or Republican candidates calling for rights of nature, but are there any alternative, like independent candidates, presidential candidates, or other people in say at the federal level, including this in their platform?
I haven't seen it actually rise to that level. We would love to see it happen, but most of the work in the United States at this point is at the community level.
Yeah, in small towns and counties, and as we talked about.
Well, also in New Mexico, Morrow County, New Mexico, became the first county to recognize rights of nature at a county level, and in Vermont, we're now.
All right, are we live, Angela?
Yes, we are live and back. And my apologies, my computer just went. My apologies.
We were just having a chat. So many people advocate technology as the savior for climate change, and it's like, give me a break. No.
Okay, sorry, folks, we got disconnected. These things happen, but we're back now. You're listening to I Am Nature, and with Robin Milan. Did I get it right this time?
Milam, yes.
Milam, okay. And so you're talking about some movement in Vermont. Well, I think when we were rudely disconnected.
I was just saying that there is a movement going on in Vermont where some of the townships have passed resolutions calling for the adoption at a state level. Still a long way from happening, but the momentum is there. And, it's as much, I am so passionate, my colleagues and I are so passionate about this, but we also get frustrated because it does take so much time. And one of the things that we keep reminding ourselves is the rights of nature movement is actually a continuation of the civil rights movement in the United States. Most people don't stop and think about the fact that when our Constitution was written, we think in terms of all men are created equal. Well, in retrospect, at the beginning of our country, it was white male landowners who had rights and protection, and voting rights and protection under the law. Women couldn't own property. We were largely perceived to be the property of our husbands, and we had no voting rights. And that was the same for African Americans. And it took a civil war and, almost 100 years or so before black males in the United States were given the right to vote. And for women, it wasn't until 1920 that at a national level, we as women were granted the right to vote. And, somewhere along the way, we were granted the right to own property. And so what we're seeing is that it's now time to recognize that humans are not the only living beings on this planet, and that our tendency to take a dominant position as human beings on our planet is not working. And it's what's causing so much of the degradation, the condition of our planet. And it's time for us to recognize that our planet, the ecosystems, the water systems, have the right to be healthy, and that we need to recognize that it is the right of the ecosystems to be healthy if we are ever going to hope to really solve the issues that we're dealing with in terms of the condition of our planet.
I totally agree with you. I mean, the situation is dire. Is to put it, that's mildly put. I mean, Munta mentioned that I think it was the World Wildlife Fund said that we've already killed off half the species on the planet in the last 40 years.
Yes.
That's how irresponsible collectively the human race has been.
Well, and we actually, the natural order is to lose something like, I think 5 species a year. But we are now losing somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 species a year. And, that's a point that Brian Swim is making, that it's time for us to wake up, to recognize that we are responsible for ensuring that we maintain the life of our planet and our species. And it was only in the last 100 years or so that we as a human community began to even talk about species extinction. It wasn't on our horizon until now. We've gotten to it. People think of it and refer to it as a 6th mass extinction that is underway.
X6, yeah.
Okay. And I mean, 69, something like 69% of the glaciers on our planet are gone.
Yeah. Things are really changing much too quickly. And it's just, there's so many things going wrong here. But Angela wanted to bring us back to the issue of the prayer lines. What did you want to ask?
Yes, well, thank you. Thank you for letting me ask a question. I did have commentary on your last topic really quickly. With I'll be talking about this next hour. I'm sub-hosting for one of the hosts here on Revolution Radio, and I'm going to be joined by a man named Earthplay. We're going to be talking about the orca 100% mortality rate, etc. We're going to be talking about the ecosystem in the Pacific specifically, as just being, it's a goner. It's really terrible. It's hard to have a positive outlook, in this type of scenario. So I look forward to, growing as a person and becoming more active in ways to affect change. And I applaud you for your work, Robin, and of course, Brian as well. So just to comment on that, then the question back to the prayer lines was, when you mentioned that and you're bringing in, different executives, I believe to have them, quote unquote, in my own words, infiltrate the prayer lines. It reminds me of almost like an absolutely opposite effect of when they did that to the original indigenous population in Australia when they were infiltrating the prayer lines back then, the song lines with the Christian missionaries, infiltrating different thoughts inside of the song lines and affecting a huge, shift in the mindset of the traditional, frequencies that were coming out of these song lines. Hopefully that will have the opposite effect when you're inviting these Chevron people or whomever into these prayer lines. I would love it if you could elaborate a little more on that. Well,
actually, what's happening, and I've if you look at We Can International, WordPress.com, they actually have a write-up on the San Francisco Bay Area Refinery Corridor healing walks, and there's going to be a series of them. They've had several, but on April the 18th from Pittsburgh to Martinez. And again, this is in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then on Sunday, May the 17th from Martinez to Benicia, and then the 20th from Benicia to Rodeo, and then on the 19th of July, that's 20th of June and 19th of July, Rodeo to Richmond. And the walks begin and they end in prayers for the water. And these prayers are conducted by Native American women and are led by Native American elders. The first one is actually going to be led by a wonderful, wonderful woman, Casey Camp Hornick. Casey, and they're organized by the Bay Area people, including, as I mentioned, Penny Opal Plant. But Casey Camp Hornick is Ponca, Ponca, from Oklahoma, and she's an incredible indigenous woman who I've been with her and traveling in Lima and in Quito, and she was part of the New York walk last September, and she's going to be walking it. And so the intention is to walk these corridors that are being impacted by the refineries and by the residents living near the refineries are dealing with a whole myriad of health issues, from asthma, cancer, respiratory, and so it's an opportunity for, as communities, to walk in prayer and to extend gratitude and to pray for the healing of the land, the water, and the communities themselves.
Wow, that's just beautiful. It's it is change at the very beginning, right there.
Right, and one of the things that they are ramping up to say no to is, I don't know how much you're aware, but the crude oil is coming out of tar sands is actually heavier and the oil that's, that we're now that we're into the second and third layers, going much, much, much deeper into the ground, this oil is dirtier and it burns in a hotter, more destructive way. And even though we have supposedly new technologies in these tankers that are on the railroads, we had an explosion near the Yellowstone River not too long ago and a big spill. And these refineries are bringing this crude into the Bay Area, and there's a real fear that it wouldn't take more than one or two major explosions and you've done some real damage. And so they're also looking at how they can prevent the damages and the threats to that are the new threats that are emerging. So
they're refining oil from the tar sands in Canada?
No, I did not mean to imply that the oil is coming from the tar sands to Richmond. I'm not sure exactly where it all is coming from, but certainly from the Bakken oil field and from other parts of the United States and Alaska. Yeah.
Okay. No. Yeah. I thought you were saying that, but
yeah.
They're doing what they can. They're basically shipping it mostly. Although it's getting around, because I do know now that they're mainly shipping it with rail car, because they can't seem to get pipelines to cooperate with them. But
right. Yeah. And these rail cars are, in fact, communities in this Seattle area, communities are coming together to say, no, we don't want these rail cars, the heavy traffic, the increased traffic of the railroad coming through these communities because of what's being carried in these tankers.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to hear. And as a follow up on your the prayer walk, I mean, there's a spiritual dimension to any kind of work with the environmental movement. I think it's in anyone out there who's at all connected to spirit, and no matter what modality you're using, I find it to be very refreshing to do the work that I do. And what's your feeling on that, Robin? Do you find it's an uplifting thing to do, to work with?
Absolutely. And the work that we are doing, this is sacred work. This is about our relationship with ourselves, with our Creator, with our earth, and it is very sacred work. And it's easy to get caught up in advocacy and taking a stand against this and against that. And of course, one of the things I love about the rights of nature and being and I think one of the reasons why I'm so drawn to advocating rights of nature is because it gives me hope. And people, when we talk about, I can watch people when the concept of recognizing rights of nature really lands, because it's returning to our natural relationship with our planet. And yes, this is very sacred work. And I made this the opening started for me when I was in the very remote rainforests of Ecuador, where the Achuar people are a dream culture, and they are very deeply connected with the natural world around them. And I now lead trips or tours into these remote areas, and taking people from the modern world, from the United States, Canada, Europe, and Australia, all around the world, into these areas. And our Achuar guide, our indigenous guides, will be walking along, and they're talking about, well, this tree, you boil the leaf and it's used for birth control, or this little mushroom plant, you squeeze it and the water that comes out of it is an eye ointment.
Oh.
Invariably.
Sorry, we're at a break. I just want to have you hold that thought.
Again, Robin.
Okay.
We'll be back in about 5, folks. So thanks for listening to I Am Nature. Oh, welcome back to I Am Nature. I'm your host, Brian Porter, and Robin's here from the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature. And we were having a most interesting discussion about the profound effect that one has, or the profound effect of visiting an indigenous community, such as what Robin experienced when she was down in Ecuador, I think, with the Achuar tribe. Is that not the case, Robin?
Yes, that is the case. In fact, I was starting to say that the Achuar will talk about, how they use the trees and the rainforest and various elements, and they talk about the rainforest as their grocery store. And often one of the participants will ask one of our indigenous partners, so how do you know all of this? And I'll never forget the first time I was, many years ago, was with a indigenous man named Walter, and his eyes just kind of went wide open like, what do you mean, how do we know it? And his answer was, well, the forest tells us, the trees tell us. And it has to do with their very, very deep connection with the rainforest and the natural world. And my colleagues here in the United States, Tom Goldtooth with the Indigenous Environmental Network, and I spoke about Casey Camp a few minutes ago. When we talk about rights, Tom once said, you talk about rights, we think responsibilities, and you talk about natural resources, and we think relations. And and it's because the indigenous peoples have this concept of all life, the trees, the wind, are all relations. And many indigenous communities don't have a word for rights. And it's because when you are so deeply connected with the natural world, and when you go to, whether you're farming or cutting a tree or for some use, the first thing you do is you stop and you express gratitude, and you recognize that the give and take, the reciprocity, that there's a natural flow of reciprocity, that's a give and take, and that you acknowledge that and all that you do. And when you're living in that close a relationship, then the question of who has the right for what doesn't even come up.
Yeah, I mean, they're just, like you say, it's an immersion kind of thing. I was thinking, we were chatting a bit during the break, and that have they made an effort to reach out to some of the business leaders and politicians in the U.S. to come down and visit their this amazing eco-village and ecotourism setup they have down there? What's the name of this place again?
It's called Kapawi Lodge, Kapawi, Kapawi Lodge. It is one of the top 50 ecotourist lodges recognized by National Geographic in the world. And the organization that is the original partner with the Achuar and it was created in response to this request of the Achuar. It's called the Pachamama Alliance, Pachamama. Pachamama is a indigenous word that means Mother Earth, but in the context of the indigenous world, the concept of Mother Earth really means their entire cosmos. It's much more than just the physical Mother Earth that we tend to think of it. And so when the Achuar, I don't know if I think I shared with you, but I'm not sure that I shared with the listeners. It started because in their dreams, had a vision that they needed to reach out to people in the modern world. And part of their request when they connected with Bill and Lynn Twist and others to form the Pachamama Alliance was to bring Americans, or people in the modern world is our term for it, but to bring people from the modern world to meet with them so that we could have this experience of the rainforest and the right relationship. They call it buen vivir, or living well with this deep connection with the rainforest, and that we could have the experience, an intimate experience with them in their rainforest home in a way that would have us recognize that everything we do, our lifestyle, the decisions we make around consumption and fossil fuel and all of that, has a direct impact on the rainforest and other parts of the world because we are so deeply connected. And over the course of the last 18 or so years, I'm not sure how many people. I know that there's at least one, sometimes two journeys a month, and there are people from all walks of life, from politicians to business people to mothers and teachers, and it's just a cross section of people who have felt a call to, or heard about the trips, and something in them. There's this tug that happens in your heart that says, I've got to go and have this experience. And it's life-altering.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that they should be sending open invitations to all the world leaders, especially the modern world leaders, as you ascribe them to, or the Western world leaders, because I think this would really help people and help them reconnect, because this is what's really lacking is a deep appreciation for the miracle of nature and all the energy that's connected, that connects you to nature. If you have that sensitivity to its absolute incredible beauty.
Right. Well, and I personally, if I need to reground, I live out in the forest. I'm privileged to live in the foothills of the Sierras, and just walking through the forest and allowing myself to reconnect with the natural world here in the forest around me makes a huge difference in my day-to-day life. And it's an invitation that we can all do, whether you live in the city or in a rural community. Really looking at how to make that connection so that we do really get that nature is as dependent on us as we are with nature, and it's it is a reciprocal relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Well, ideally it should be, anyways.
Yeah.
Now, Leonardo DiCaprio, have you heard about this glitzy place in Belize that he started?
That he's creating and looking to restore the reefs and the natural. I've only seen headlines about it. I don't know a lot of the details, but his intention and the intention of his colleagues and the developers is to create a natural sanctuary that will replenish the waters and the reefs in the area and provide a protection for the marine life around there. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, I know. I've seen a few articles on it. I think, I kind of have mixed feelings about it, but I do think that it's a good sign that the message is getting out into the entertainment, the popular culture, because I think that's something that Alberto Ruz mentioned a couple of weeks ago, is that in Latin America, the movement for the ecology, the rights of nature movement, like he was at a concert where there was 5,000 people, and he spoke with a very popular, I forget the name of the chap, but he says he's one of the most popular singers, and it's part of the music.
Santana?
Well, no. This is when he was down in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just got back.
Brazil.
My apologies.
In Brazil, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in Mexico. But I mean, this is what's missing here is that connection with the popular culture, because I think if we want to influence our teenagers and young adults, we got to get it out into the popular culture, and I think that's something that you're doing as well. I noticed on the site you have reference to the sponsorship and the support of people like Julia Roberts, Harrison Ford, Robert Redford, Penelope Cruz, Edward Norton. I'm not familiar with him, and Kevin Spacey.
Are you where are you looking?
It's on your site.
Actually, yes. Okay.
Nature is Speaking.
Right, and
each one has a different segment. Julia Roberts is Mother Nature. Harrison Ford is the ocean. Robert Redford is the redwood.
So what happened was they created these incredible videos and are speaking as if I am the ocean, I am Mother Earth, and yes, they're very, very moving. But they did not produce those specifically for our site. I found them and published them so that people would, because they are so powerful. Music is a very powerful connection for us.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, okay. So you put the connection to them on your site, but they're not officially connected.
Right.
Right to Nature Movement.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Some of them are, if you speak with them, they would probably be advocating it, but no, I did not. That is not. There's no implied endorsement or active participation implied with that. It was a way of, looking for inspirational material to include, and I was very moved by it, and so yes,
it was something like one of the lines was, "We need nature; nature doesn't need us," or something like that. Well, that was part of the message.
Well,
a
big piece of the message is that we as humans need the earth, but the earth will do just fine without us. It did fine without us before we were ever around, and hopefully we're not coming to a point where humans are not on this earth, but if we continue our path, that could happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also, you keep speaking about Mumta, and if people were not on the call or on this show that she was on, what's happening in Europe is Mumta Ito and citizens from all over the European Union are coming together to propose a rights of nature declaration for the EU. And it's called a European Citizens Initiative. In order for a European Citizen Initiative to be complete and to be recognized by the Parliament of the EU, they have to have 7 or 8 countries. I forget. I believe it's 7. They have to have
7 signatories.
7 signatory countries, and they have to have a very significant portion of the population sign on to endorsing that this initiative be included. And they've got a team of a large and growing team of people from the UK and Romania and Spain and Switzerland, even though Switzerland's not a UK country, or excuse me, EU. Anyway, they've got teams around Europe that are looking to make this happen, and we are partnering with them because, as they're doing it as both on their own and as a part of the Global Alliance, and are looking to use the UN Climate Change Conference as a launching point for the Rights of Nature Citizens Initiative. doing some phenomenal work.
Yeah. Oh no, I love Mumta and what she's doing, and just her whole. She has a special energy about her. She has a energy healing background.
Yeah, and she holds this as very sacred work.
Well, I mean, it is. I mean, people. I mean, if you want to reconnect with God or whatever version of God you have, join the Rights of Nature movement or join some ecological movement, because this is what no creator wants to see his planet destroyed. I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, if you want to sustain a place that has been created for you and for other life forms, I mean, this is the movement you got to be a part of. I mean, that's my opinion anyways.
Right. And we have many in the faith community who are part of our work as well. So,
yeah, and hopefully it opens the spirituality to look at different points of view too. It opens the mind on spiritual development too, because I think all religions come from nature. That's where everything starts. And I mean, when you're connected with nature, you see the energy in the plants, and you, like I say, you get to the point where you can actually communicate with them. And I know people who can, and I haven't gotten to that level yet, but I mean, I have no doubt that that ability exists, and it was something that we all had in past lives, and yeah, I mean, it's something that we can all rekindle, and I think one of the ways of getting back there is to support movements like yours, the Rights of Nature, and get involved politically. Like anybody over in Europe, get out there, find MUMTA, find the European Citizens Initiative, and get involved. Because yeah, you're right. They need. I think it's 1 million signatures to get it on the docket. So
we've already got over 800,000. Many of whom Vandana Shiva gathered 100,000. In fact, we at the Rio Earth Summit 2012 we presented to Ban Ki-moon's staff over 100,000 signatures, and Vandana Shiva was part of it, helped launch our initiative, and now they're in South America, they're in Colombia. There is, you ask about politicians, there is a woman who ran on a Rights of Nature platform, and she didn't win, but the work has continued, and they have collected several 100,000 signatures as well. And then, of course, with the concerts that Alberto and others are participating in as they travel around Latin America, you know, it's momentum is really building. And I would love to see how we in the United States could actually begin to use music and the arts in a much more profound way, because it serves to open the heart and the mind, connect the heart and mind together in a very, very powerful way.
Yeah, I think it's the most essential thing that's missing right now is that connection to the popular culture, and I do know I did see oh God, what's his name? I'm Happy. The artist, he's on The Voice. I can't think of his name right now, but he's helping Al Gore with global warming. I saw him doing that, so that was good. But the message isn't in the music here yet. I mean, it's got to be. Some artist has to take. I mean, there's that one song about radiation. What is it? What's that song about radiation? But there isn't a lot of environmental message in the music here, and I think that's what's going to turn the tide in our favor. Is when that we saw that within, like, say, the Vietnam War movement, the anti-war movement, how powerful the message was in the music back then.
I will tell you, there's a young indigenous girl. She's Takaya Blaney, who has an incredible voice, and is doing just Silent Waters is her theme song. Takaya, I'll have to look it up and send it to you. But yes.
There's a ton of alternative music people doing it. A lot of, like you say, the indigenous, and that's one of the things I really like about what you guys are doing too. The Rights of Nature people is you've gotten through the barrier that existed for many years between the indigenous community and the modern community. You've created a bridge, and it's so important that we listen to the wisdom and be motivated by that community to act and to move forward. I mean, this is so vital. I mean, it's just to me it's what makes doing what I do so meaningful, is that connection to the indigenous community and all the friends I've made in that community since I started this my show.
Well, we are living in a world that is out of balance, and what we're looking to do is to restore the natural balance. And I don't want to romanticize the indigenous relationship with nature, but it is so very important. We have so much to learn from our indigenous brothers and sisters, and about how we do commune with nature in a way that has meaning and effect.
Yeah. Now, here's a networking idea for you for the Rights of Nature movement. Have you heard of Michael Tellinger and the Ubuntu movement?
I don't know. I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it.
Okay.
But, yes.
I was surprised too, because Kasia Joubert wasn't aware of it either, and she's involved with. Do you know Jen, the global eco community movement?
Yes.
Yeah, and because Michael is very much moving in a parallel direction to you guys. You might want to reach out to him. He's got he's reporting to have 70 to 80 countries connected with his movement. Lots of followers all over the world. He too is trying to get make some penetration into mainstream politics. I'm not sure his platform is going to be that effective, but I'm trying to reach out to him too and get him on my show and make some suggestions that would to vary his platform. But it sounds like we're getting near the end of our show here, Robin. So I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your being here today and sharing all the magnificent things that the Rights of Nature movement is doing for the planet.
Well, thank you. It was quite an honor, and people can find more information at therightsofnature.org. Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Angela. It's been a great afternoon, and I so appreciate this opportunity to speak with you and with your listeners. And so thank you to all your listeners for your generosity of time and interest.
All right. Well, let's stay connected, all right? I love what you're doing.
Bye
Take care now.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Hi, this is Bo.
And this is Rocco.
And the Bo and Rocco Show is here to offer insight into legal and lawful remedies. Our goal is to remain free and help others remain free in an ever-increasing police-like state. With the help of our guests, we try to answer questions such as what went wrong and what can we do about it.
So tune into Revolution Radio at www.freedomslips.com Wednesday nights, 10 to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to listen to the Bo and Rocco Show.
You don't need to expect us.
We're already here.
Revolution Radio. Every Tuesday evening on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, we present our goddess spiritual warrior, Kathy Bilski.
I command. I call to the architect of the universe's divine creators and ask for permission to quantum leave the world in all life forms on all planes and dimensions, seen and unseen, connected with planet Earth, to let us go beyond our known potential into the greatest unknown golden age the universes and worlds and all planets have ever experienced.
Kathy teaches the spiritual truth so that you may create a better life and be able to make positive changes for yourself and for the planet. She helps us remember that we are not powerless, but very creative spiritual beings having an Earth experience. Time to quantum leap into the age of divine enlightenment and let Kathy provide you with the tools of knowledge you need to awaken spiritually. That's the Quantum Leap Show. Let Light Unite every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio Studio B.